So this time naman, our events are mutually mutually inclusive. In short, something is common between the two events. If you noticed a while ago in our first example for the exclusive events, the first event and the second event do not have anything in common. But when we say inclusive events, something is common between the two of them. Okay, what's that? For example, the best example here that we can use is when we roll a die. Okay, let's have this. A die is rolled. What is the probability that um, what's the probability of getting an even number? Even number. A number greater than 2 or an odd number. Ayan. So this is what makes it inclusive, because something is common between the two events. And mind you that we are still referring with the word or, so therefore we are still adding the probabilities. Now, if we will consider the two events, the first event is a die is rolled. So you know a die. What is the probability of getting a number greater than 2? That is our first event. So from this die, what's the probability of getting a number greater than 2? And what are those numbers greater than 2? Those are, type them in the chat box, please. What are the numbers greater than 2? What are the numbers greater than 2 when you roll a die? Okay, very good. They are 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those are the numbers greater than 2. So therefore, that is, what's the probability? That is 4 over 6, which is the total. Okay, that is the first event, a number greater than 2. Now we have our second event. Our second event is an odd number. And in a die, when you roll a die, what are the odd numbers? What are the odd numbers? They are 1, 3, and 5. Very good. So therefore, what's the probability? What's the probability? That is 3 over 6. Very good. Again, will you simplify them? Not yet. Why? Because we are dealing with or, so therefore expect that we will be adding them or subtracting them in the end. Okay? So wag na muna yung simplify para hindi kayo paulit-ulit sa process. And now, this is what I am referring to you now with the inclusive events, the inclusivity. Yan. Have you noticed that there are elements in your events that are the same? Are there similar elements in your two given events? Yes. What are those? The 3 and the 5. Ayun, the 3. Let me change the color. Pink, we have the 3 and the 5. 3 and the 5. And so therefore, that becomes their intersection. Kasi meron silang pareho, meron silang common. I hope you remember our intersection of events from our last week's lesson. So therefore, let this be our event A and let this be our event B. Now, let's identify the probability. I'll make it red para maiba kasi ito yung ima-minus natin kasi common siya sa dalawa. If we will not subtract them, the values will be duplicated kasi dalawang beses magagamit si 3 and 5 for the first event and 3 and 5 for the second event. So we need to subtract the intersection. Okay? So that is the intersection of A and B. Kasi inclusive merong pareho sa kanila. And so therefore, what is the probability of the intersection of the events? Ilan sila? They are 2 out of how many? 2 out of the 6. Okay, kasi they are 3 and 5. So that is 2 over 6. Can you follow? Show me reaction if that first part is clear to you. Let me see. Okay. Saan galing si 2 over 6? From your intersection, kung ano yung common sa kanila. Okay? Now, let's continue. Now that we already have formed the probabilities of the two events and their intersection, we can now proceed with our formula for the mutually inclusive events. They are inclusive kasi may common sa kanila. Please take note of that. Okay? And so now, let's just simply substitute our probabilities. So this will become the probability of the union of A and B will be equal to P of A. Our first event is 4 over 6. This is what I'm telling you, na do not simplify it yet kung pare-pareho yung denominator. Plus, the second event is 3 over 6. Can you follow? And then minus, we need to subtract what's common. And that is 2 over 6. Okay, we've been doing this last week. Just that last week, ano lang sila? Number of, sa cardinality tayo kasi numbers yung mina-minus at ina-add. But this time, probabilities naman. Okay? And so, when we simplify this, this becomes 4 plus 3. That becomes 7 over 6 minus 2 over 6. Okay? Inadd ko itong dalawa. And then finally, let's subtract 7 minus 2. That's 5 over 6. So that's the probability of the union of A and B. That's it. Show me a reaction if that process is clear. Very good. Okay, got it? Thank you so much. So that is when there are common. So we need to subtract them at the end. Okay, remember that. Next, this one naman, ito, probability of independent events. So we're done with the words or. Kasi either or lang ang pinag-uusapan natin doon. But this time, we will be dealing with the word and. And this happens when we talk about the probability of independent events. Ayan. May kanya-kanyang buhay na tong mga to, pero kailangan silang pagsamahin. Okay? And this time, we will be dealing with the word and. And of course, when you say and, the process is multiplication. Please take note of this. Okay? So, let's have this as our example. Ayan. So, this time, magkaiba na yung dalawang given natin. So, let's try this. A die is rolled and a coin is tossed. What is the probability that an even number will be shown and a tail will land. Ayan. So this time, we are now dealing with the probability of independent events. Okay. Iba si event A kay event B, pero at the same time, pareho silang lalabas. Okay? A die is rolled and a coin is tossed. What's the probability that an even number, this is an even number will be shown and a tail will land. Okay. So therefore, there are two events, and make sure, mind you, that there is this word "and," meaning we are dealing with multiplication. So let's be familiar with our given. Our two events will be an even number will be shown. So therefore, that will be our event A. So what's the probability of getting an even number from a rolled die? Type the answer in the chat box, please. That's our first event. What's the probability that an even number will be shown? Okay, so kailangan ko ng isang die. That's for my A. Ayan. At kailangan ko rin ng coin. Ayan, 20 pesos. Yan. Okay. So, what's the probability that an even number will be shown? Type it in the chat box, please. Okay, correct. That's 3 over 6. Because the even numbers are 2, 4, and 6. So that is 3 over, the total is 6. Very good. The next event. The next event is a tail will land. What's the probability of getting a tail? This is our event B. Type it in the chat box, please. That's 1/2. Very good. The tail is the kabaliktaran of the face. Okay, so that's 1/2. Okay? And so, since we are dealing with "and", sabay silang lalabas, wala tayong choice. So, just like FPC, we need to multiply the events. So that becomes the probability of, this will be our formula. This is actually the intersection. The probability of the intersection of A and B, which is the symbol for the independent events, will be our P of A, our first event is 3 over 6, times our second event, the tail, is 1/2. And you know that when we are multiplying, we multiply numerator to numerator and then denominator to denominator. So therefore, this will be equal to 3 times 1, that's 3, over 6 times 2, that's 12. Simplify. What's the simplest form of their intersection? What's the simplest form of 3 over 12? Type it in the chat box. They are both divisible by 3. So divide them both by 3. The answer will be 1/4. Very good. 1/4 or 25%. There's a 25% chance that an even number will be shown and a tail will land. That's 25% probability or 1/4. Okay, show me a reaction if that's clear to you. Very good. Okay, remember, basta makita mo si "and", multiplication agad yon. Basta't make sure na nasa gitna ng dalawang events yon. Okay? That's it. And so, finally, we are down to the last parts. These are just actually easy. We have here the conditional probability. Okay. When we say conditional probability, this happens when a condition should be met. Kaya nga conditional probability eh. How is that? So for the conditional probability, this happens when conditional probability of an event refers to the probability of that event on the condition that another event has occurred. Halimbawa, kung sa probability ng mga nanalo, basketbag game or round robin, one round robin lang na basketball game. Pag nanalo ka, mag-move forward ka. Remember our sports fest. Ayan. Pag nanalo ka, mag-move up ka. And from those sa mga nag-move up, sila maglalaban-laban para sa championship round. Para sa first, second, third na positions. Parang ganon. So, kung hindi masasatisfy yung first round, hindi masasatisfy yung pangalawa. Kasi kailangan meron munang mangyari bago mo magawa yung susunod. That's conditional probability. Okay? And how is conditional probability done? This happens through this formula. Yan. Conditional probability of event B occurring given that the event A has occurred. Dapat may nangyari na. Okay? How is that? So, let's take a look at this example. Okay. Yan. Are you familiar with CSC? When we say CSC, that is the civil service exam. Yan, civil service. Sa mga kapag nasa college na kayo, pwede na kayo mag-civil service. At kapag civil service ka, meron kang parang ito yung isang lisensya na pwede kang magtrabaho sa public sector. Ayan. So, in this problem, it says, an action research shows that 25% of the CSC test takers failed the test on the first try. So 25% failed. So that's our first. Our first event is that 25% failed on the first try. Okay? Let's complete muna our problem. And failed again on the second try. Aro. So deni pala ragong applicant sa Reni. May bagsak na lang first test, may bagsak la paragong second. Ay, rugo naman. Of these takers, 40% failed the test on the first try. What percent of those who failed the first test also failed the second test? Ayan. So there are two sets kasi. Two sets of tests dun sa CSC na yon, no? So itong 25% na to bumagsak sa first try tapos nag-fail sa second try. Of these test takers, 40% failed the test on the first try. Of course, sila yung sa first try lang sila bumagsak. Ibig sabihin nun, sa second try, pumasa na sila. Okay? Now, what percent of those who failed the first test also failed the second test? Okay. So, how will we do that? Okay. So, if we will look at this, 40%, we will let A be the event that they only failed on the first try. Okay? So, failed only on the first try. Ayan. So, what is that? The event wherein the test takers failed on the first try is 40%. That's 40%. Kasi yun lang yung nakalagay dito. Ayun, no? Yun, based from our given. Okay, we just have to organize our given. And now, let our event B naman failed na on the first and then failed pa on the second. That's for our event B. Failed na on the first and on the second. Ay rugo naman. And they are just 25%. Okay. So what percent of those who failed in the first test also failed the second test? So from here, we will be using now our conditional probability. And this is kasi ito one lang to. This is just the one event lang to. This is the A. But for the B, dito kasi nangyari, merong dalawang conditions na nangyari. Nag-fail na sa una, tapos nag-fail pa sa pangalawa. So this is where our two events occurred. Dito na nangyari yung dalawa. Kasi dalawa na yung nangyaring conditions. Okay? So our formula says P of B of A ayan, is equal to, of course, that's 25% or 0.25. 25%, yun, yung meron ng dalawang nangyari na conditions over the simple event lang. The simple event for the denominator, and that is 40%. Okay? And after that, all you have to do is to divide them, express them first in decimal format. That's 0.25 over 0.4. And so when you solve this further, what is 0.25 over 0.4? Use your calculator. What is 0.25 over 0.4? It's 0.625 or 62.5%. So that is conditional probability. And it says here that 62.5% of those who failed the first test also failed the second test. Can you follow? Show me a reaction if that's clear to you. Okay. Let's have another example. Kasi for some, this is quite tricky. Okay, but again, I would like to remind you na, sir, what if po P of A is 0? Hindi siya pwede. Hindi pwedeng walang event sa A. Kasi kapag naging 0 si A, that means it's null. It's null. It's an empty set. So therefore, walang nangyaring ganon. Ibig sabihin, hindi mo siya pwedeng gawin kasi mathematically speaking, you cannot divide a number by 0 because that's undefined. That's the reason why there is this case here. Ayan o. Bawal na 0 yung A kasi magiging undefined siya. Undefined. And what do you call this? Speaking of the real scenario, walang mangyayaring conditional kasi wala ka namang ibang sinabi. Walang ibang nangyari, kumbaga. So kailangan kasi meron pang isang nangyayari para masabi mo yung conditional probability. Let's have another example. Okay, let's take this. Let's try this activity. Ito, mas madali siyang intindihan kumpara sa CSC kasi in the CSC, that's already for the civil service. But this one is easier and a lot more understandable in your level. Ayan. In a barangay, 36% of the students own a cell phone and 36% may cell phone sa mga estudyante. And 24% of the students own a cell phone and a laptop. May cell phone na, may computer pa. Okay? O yan, mas madaling intindihin to. 36% of the students have cell phone. O, cell phone lang pinag-uusapan nun. But in this case, there's another one naman na that 24% of the students own a cell phone and also a laptop. Oh, there goes the intersection then. So what's the probability that a student owns a laptop given that a student owns a cell phone? So how is that? So of course, the P of A, ito lang yung simple event natin. Our A will just be our simple event. And that's just this, the 36%. Can you follow? And then the AUB, the intersection of B, yun yung meron ng cellphone, meron pang computer, that's 24%. Can you follow? And so we just have to solve them. P of B and A is equal to, of course, nasa taas yung merong intersection, that's 24% over the 36%. Yeah, this is a lot easier to understand. Okay, and then express it in decimals. This is 0.24 over 0.36. Oh, calculators, please. Press this in the calculator. What's the answer? 0.24 divided by 0.36. Press it in the calculator and then type it in the chat box. Okay, I want you to express it in percent, in percentage. Okay. What's the answer? That's 0.6667. When you multiply this by 100, this becomes 66.67%. So therefore, there is a 66.67% probability that a student owns a laptop, given that he or she also owns a cell phone, or they also own a cell phone. Can you follow? That is 66%. 66.67% of all the students in that barangay. Meron ng cellphone, meron pa laptop. Okay? Show my reaction if that's clear. Very good. Okay? And finally, the probability of dependent events. Ito, madali lang to. This is just easy. Okay? Dependent. From the word dependent, nakadepende siya sa kung ano mangyaring nauna. Kung ano nangyaring nauna. Okay? And how is that? This is just very simple. When we explain the example here, mare-recall nyo na meron na tayong ginawang ganito when we were having our FPC. Okay. Dependent ito eh. So we now have the last one, the probability of dependent events. Okay, and this usually happens when two events A and B are dependent if the occurrence of the first event affects the outcome of the second event. Kapag halimbawa, kapag sa Lotto, for example, in Lotto, who among you are familiar in the Lotto draw? Who among you are familiar in the Lotto draw? Patingin nga. Ay, they are not familiar with the Lotto draw. Wala nagloloto sa mga magulang nyo. Wala. Good. Kasi there is a very small chance of winning in Lotto. Okay. Magigisang kayo mo pera. Itata ko. Anak ko pa mo tatayan ng Lotto hanggang ngayon patinod. Kita na mong tsapulo-pulo niyang anak ko. Tsa 20-20 hanggang ngayon eh. Tapos tong kay kapag feeling niya confident siya na mananalo siya, 100 pa yung tinataya niya hanggang ngayon di pa siya nananalo ng jackpot. That's because this affects the what do you call that, the events. Ayan. Game. Kasi how is that? Let's make this simple. Ready? So in the probability of dependent events, this happens when the total is changed. How is that? Kapag nang nakuha na siya dito, hindi na siya pwedeng makuha pa sa susunod. Okay? Now, let's have an example here. Let me just type it. A bag contains 10 10 kaya na lang. Card na lang. Mar Wilson has a deck, a set of hearts cards. Ayan. So, hearts cards, ace of cards, the number cards, and the red heart, the face cards. Face, hearts, cards. Ayan. What's the probability of picking an ace card what's the probability of picking a numbered card and face card? Ayan. Mar Wilson has a set of hearts cards. Okay, you're familiar with the hearts cards. Let me just get deck of cards. Okay, nandito na lang at the very start. And just to show which are those cards here. Ayan. So, ito ang meron si Mar Wilson at the moment. The hearts cards. Yan. So, Mar Wilson has a set of hearts cards. Let me go back to our, this one. Ayan. So, what is the probability of picking a numbered card and a face card? So, there will be 2 times that she will be, or Mar Wilson will be picking a card. Okay, what's the probability? Of course, our event A here will be our numbered card. This is our A. And a face card will be our second event. Okay, and so first, let's identify the probability of picking a numbered card. So, numbered card, letter A na lang kasi alam naman natin na numbered card na yon. The probability of picking a numbered card is what? Of course, that's the first pick. What is the probability? Type it in the chat box, please. And they are from 2 to 10. How many? Or what's the probability of picking a numbered card? Let me see. Ayan. So that is 1. 1 over 9? Is it only 1 over 9? What's the probability of picking a numbered card? Probability. How many numbered cards ba are there in this set? It's 9. There are 9 cards over 13 because there are 13 cards in all. Okay, that's our first. Now, this happens in the dependent events because this time, when you pick again, remember in here, without replacement tayo, no? Picking picking a numbered card and a face card. Here, take note of this. In succession, yan, without replacement. Meaning, walang binabalik. Okay? Wala tayong binabalik after mong kuhanin. Okay. So sa unang kuha, walang problema because the set are still complete. Now, for the second picking, do you think the set will still be complete? Not anymore because the first card was already picked. So therefore, what is now the probability of getting a face card from the new set of cards? How many face cards are there? There are 3. But this time, since the first card was already picked sa numbered card, dito naman, ilan na lang natitira? They will only be 12. Can you follow? And so, in here, since dalawa lang naman ang pinipili, a numbered card and a face card, then hanggang dun lang yung gagawin natin nun. So after that, we just have to multiply the probability